Hello and welcome to the Paal15 Podcast. My name is Jesse Muller, Global Head of Strategy at Paal15, and I'm delighted to be joined today by a very special guest on today's show. Gøran Andersson is a sales, marketing and business development expert with a wide experience of building partnerships in the B2B technology and telecoms industries across Europe and the USA. His career has seen him hold senior roles at several of the world's leading technology companies, and for the last 5 years he's been a Director of Partner Development at Microsoft, leading their global partner practice for modern workplace and teams, among other things, and building ecosystems that create real value for Microsoft partners. So, Gøran, great to have you. Welcome to our show today.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the nice introduction.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's get into our first question. So this podcast is all about partnerships and how you build partnerships. So just from a personal perspective, before we dive into the other questions, what do you find most fun about building partnerships personally, as during your day and during your work at Microsoft?
Personally, I've been in the IT industry for 25 years now. Many of those years I spent with Microsoft, and always in the partner organization. So, I have seen a lot of different angles of the partnership landscape. There's been so much change, and the value chains change that all these organizations will have to organize around. They've been in constant flux and very fragmented. So there's always been like an inherent need, I think, of partnering, because alone it's just been very difficult to manage everything on your own. And I think the successes, the partnerships that's been really successful, they're born out of like a need that they have to share risk, they have to share responsibility, they have to front the customers as a unit, and they have to be together about building the value for the customer. And I think those are kind of the strongest relationships when it's symbiotic, and if one fails, the other one fails. Like if you have that type of dynamic, then you really share the successes, but you also share the failures if that would happen, and you will learn from that, and you will build on it, and then you will go on. And I think in the early days, like in the early 2000s, there were so much unclarity around the whole ecosystem. So I think the ecosystems got born out of a lot of customer demand, customer needs that were not very specified, and because of that, good strong partnership models grew out of that type of industry. If I take like a big step back, the most successful partnerships, they're born out of need, and also that you share risk, and that you also have both are kind of facing the customer. And if one fails, the other one also fails. So I think that's those are the strongest partnerships for sure.
So are there any specific examples that you can remember of sort of how a successful partnership sort of significantly benefited your specific business or your department within Microsoft?
Yeah, I think so. I think like if you think about our journey at Microsoft back in 2013, 2014, we launched the Cloud Solution Provider Program, the CSP program. I remember signing up the first partner in Europe at the time on CSP. And now I think we have hundreds of thousands of CSP partners, either through our indirect channel or the direct channel. So this has become a very successful ecosystem for Microsoft. When we built that model, it was not so much of a licensing model, but it was more a partnership model. And it was born out of the need of bringing the services of the partners into our customers, and then bringing the licenses and the commercial Microsoft relationship along with it, right? So we took the pivot of the partner's own value as the kind of the most important part of the value chain. And then we were kind of tagging along on the like the e-commerce side of it. So the licenses and the commerce side of it came as a second. And I think that became, kind of the version 1 of what we now look at as the platform economy, where you have a platform where you can build value, you have different participants, you have network connections, and it just accumulates. Like year over year, it's just been building and building and building. And at some point, it becomes a ecosystem or something larger that you don't really control anymore. It was like all the participants are kind of, taking control of this platform and shaping it. But yeah, if I look back at 2014, 2013, when we signed up the first CSP partner in Europe, I don't think we realized that this would become such a big platform as it is 10 years, 11 years later.
Yeah, that's an amazing growth story. I can imagine that also at the same time, because you have this big beast, that when changes happen from one end or the other, right, within the markets or by choice from Microsoft towards the partners, that it can create some tension within that whole ecosystem. So how do you deal with that? How do you make sure that you smooth out those types of transitions or those types of changes?
Yeah, and I think in any partnership, communication is super important. So you need to have a very open line to your partners. You need to be clear about why you're making certain changes. And I think that's also why we've been successful making some kind of bigger changes. We made some changes, a number of years ago that were disruptive. We have made recent changes as well. That's been challenging for some partners, but I think what partners have been able to do is to focus on, the next thing or the next value that they can add to this new environment, because we need to keep pushing the model. We can't sit still. We need to challenge the model. We get a lot of customer feedback. And based on that feedback from customers, we need to take action around our platform offerings. And sometimes, that is not serving all partners equally, right? But it's all about moving forward and moving this ecosystem to a direction where everyone can add incremental value that actually has good meaning to the customer relationship. Yeah, in any partnership, in any relationship, it starts with having a good foundation in terms of communications and being very clear and honest about where you want to go with your vision, with your platform, and the journey that you're on, and then bring of course the partners along with you on that journey. Make sure that you have programs and benefits, and make it as easy as possible for partners to adopt the new changes and come with you on the journey.
What are sort of other essential elements that you define as, okay, a partnership can only work if you have this and this in place, else it will probably fall apart.
I think from a value chain perspective, there needs to be clear needs from the customer, right? So if I'm thinking about from the Microsoft perspective and the example we just went through, if the value chain is maturing or developing or going towards obsoleteness, sometimes we just see products and features, being obsolete. So we just need to move on and develop from there. But if you're kind of stuck in the past and you think that your feature or your product or your value is still the best thing since sliced bread, but it's not, then it will be hard for any partnership to survive for the longer term. So you need to constantly challenge the model and constantly challenge also your customers in order to bring that the best value to that partner, to that customer, and to that partnership.
What are sort of frequent mistakes that you then see when building partnerships? I guess from a Microsoft perspective, you have many partnerships. I'm also keen to understand, is there a difference between types of partnerships, right? If you look at, for instance, managed service providers or telecom companies or other types of companies like system integrators, are there any differences in how you build those partnerships and how you engage with those?
There are probably like, books and theories written on this topic as well. But I think, from what I'm seeing, there are many different partnerships. And some partnerships are just born out of the need that there's a gap, someone needs to help. You bring someone in, you pay them for that specifically. Yeah? So it's just more like a vendor customer transaction. You you make sure that you have good detailed description of what you need, and you have a working statement, and you have a PO, and everything is very transacted in a sense. There's just not one partner who can do everything that the customer needs. So they need to source that from other partners. And then you have like a main contractor. You can think about it like if you're renovating your house, you have this main contractor, and then they bring in, all the subcontractors to do, certain or specific things that you can't do as the main contractor. So I think those relationships, like those partnerships, are more transactable. They're sort of easy. You have tools and software platforms who can help you manage those relationships as well quite effectively. So, I think that's kind of the easiest part and probably the most common way of partnering. And you just partner around customer projects, and it doesn't necessarily scale that well, right? So it's like every customer is a new day, and you need to kind of redefine the scope each time, and then you create your relationships based on that. The ecosystem partnerships, where we are in at Microsoft, when you think about when you need scale. So you need to think about, okay, how do you build platforms? How do you build the platform economy? How do you invite different participants into your platform? And those type of partnerships are a little bit less defined. So you can always evolve. You can always do more of the value chain. You can be a little bit more creative in terms of how you want to develop that, your uniqueness and your differentiation in those partnerships.
So you've worked with many of these partners, types of partners, right? From smaller MSPs towards and the larger telecom operators of the world. Those typically also have different types of business units, right? They probably have wholesale versus more system integration type of services as well. Do you relate to those types of partners in different ways, or do you work with them in different ways, or is it all sort of in a similar fashion?
No, I think all of them have different nuances to them, right? And I think that's also how we as Microsoft want to be relevant to the type of partner and their business models. So I think the definition that we use is more on the business model side. So, a telecom provider would have their own services. They have connectivity services, they have 5G or mobility services, and we want to build our services around those propositions to make sure that we together go to market with something that responds well to the customer. With VARs and MSPs, they own a different part of the value chain. They might manage some of their IT on site. They might have support 24/7. So they might have their managed security solutions in with their customers. So with those customers, it's a little bit more of an integrated, or those partnerships is more of an integrated type of approach, where they basically take your services and build that part of the proposition. Not too different from what the telecom services partners will do, but just on a different part of the value chain. And of course, ISVs, they're building software applications in Azure in our case, and they're selling that to their customers that happen to be Microsoft customers, and we want to make that easy for the customer to make sure that there's also good level of security, base security, because they're using Azure, and there's also some intrinsic value for the customer and the ISV to be on our platform versus other platforms. So there's some economic incentives for both, and there are also some security and compliance incentives. And then of course we have our marketplaces, I would say, because we have several marketplaces that also help our ISVs to go to market and to be to monetize basically the Microsoft customer base.
Cool. So are there any, based on that experience that you've had, is there a top 3 of actionable tips and tricks you would give anyone building a partnership, whether you're a small ISV or you're in a big hyperscaler or something like that?
Yeah, I think first of all, don't be afraid of partnering. I think the opposite is maybe what you should be more afraid of, to try to do everything yourself.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I think first of all, make sure that you're open for partnership, and that you focus on the partnership model as it's something that you need to invest in. It's like a plant that needs tending. You need to water it and feed it and make sure that it actually grows into becoming a tree. Because I see some partnerships that are very convenient, right? It's opportunistically based. It's like, oh, we have a customer problem. We have a problem with our customer. Let's bring in a partner to fix it. And then the customer is happy, and then we remove the partner, and we'll take over the relationship again. Hiring the right skill set. I think that's kind of the second point. Hiring people who understand the value of partnering, so that you have partner managers or partner alliance managers that know how to manage these type of networks. If you have a platform economy, so that's basically a scalable model where you have to serve many network connections and many participants, then you also need to make sure that you hire community managers and content managers, and you have a lot more engagement with your partners. And I see too many partners who try to do something with the left hand just to partner for the sake of partnering, but they don't invest in the practice of partnering. So I think that would be kind of my biggest advice to anyone who goes into partnering, is to look at it as a practice that needs skills, and it needs a roadmap, and it needs a vision, and it needs its own P&L, like investments, that you can measure the success of the partnerships comes back to the investments that you have made into the practice.
I think that's about all the time we have for today on the Paal15 podcast. So thank you for your time. Gøran, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Anytime, and thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. And as always, thank you to our viewers and our listeners. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our channels for future shows. You can find us on all the regular places: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and of course at our website, paal15.com. Hope to see you guys next time, and have a great day. Cheers.